the Hathor location is coming into Star Citizen in 4.1, and it is indeed repurposed assets. Thank you, CIG, for making good use of that. And it should be bringing some good content to the game, but as has been asked here, why? Why is this a thing? So let's look at Theaters of War. This was supposed to be a test situation where players could jump into something like Arena Commander, essentially Arena Commander, and experience mixed arms combat, think Battlefield 2142 style gameplay, but with Star Citizen assets. And this would give them the chance to test out different styles of gameplay and see how FPS is working and all this stuff without people having to go into the PU, die, respawn, and do all that stuff over and over. Now, Arena Commander handles this, but it doesn't do it in a mixed arms format. So the point of this, as you'll see, was really to make sure people were going from vehicles to ships to FPS and interacting with one another so that they could start to understand how those interactions happen and balance things based on that. It didn't work. The game, as you know, doesn't run well, so this was never running well enough to actually get launched. And now that server meshing is in and Arena Commander does run a little bit better and they're making progress, maybe they will bring this in. I don't think it'll ever be its own mode, though. I think it's just going to be larger Arena Commander maps being used with mixed arms. And that's kind of what we're seeing with like this Arena Commander edition here is adding in Crossroads of Crime, the largest Arena Commander map ever. This very well could be somewhere where they start including these mixed arms combat. So we'll see if that happens or not, but let me let you give a little look on their best initiative they ever launched, Theaters of War.
I'm online. All right, very good. So, yeah, somebody get out of the way real quick. I've been taking pictures with a lot of people today, and it's awesome. Had a lot of fun, but do me a solid. I've got to you guys take a picture with me this time, okay? All right, everybody say fuck in that picture.
Everybody say fuck.
All right. Okay, all ready? Of course, interesting. A lot of, kind of stuff. But today it's going to be a little bit different. So today I want to talk about a new game mode for Star Marine that we're calling Theaters of War. So up on stage with me and at the end is a lead FPS designer, Richard Tyre, and he's been instrumental in helping me build this game mode for Star Marine. And he's going to stick around to answer some questions during the Q&A at the end. So let's go over the agenda a little bit. So first what we're going to talk about is sort of the electronic access and lore and what that really is all about. How AC and SM fit into it, how Theaters of War will fit into it. Then we're going to talk about what Theaters of War actually is. So we're going to explain what Theaters is and kind of what the whole intent of the mode is and pretty much why we made it. Next, we're actually going to talk about the map that we're playing here at Citizencon today. So it's a scenario.
Let's get to the explanation part. All right, come on.
Axis is like this simulator for all these different events that can go on within the universe. Basically, it's like an entertainment for the denizens of Star Citizen, for citizens. And it's really an important distinction because Arena Commander, Star Marine kind of exist under this umbrella. And because it's a simulation, we can kind of get away with some stuff that is a little more, quote-unquote gamey than it is in the persistent universe. In the persistent universe, things are a little more permanent.
It's a lot of talk.
So now let's talk about the scenario or the theater that we built for Citizencon.
We gotta take the space. I'll keep you updated as we go. We'll watch each other's back and come home in one piece.
You can see it's classic Star Citizen combat. Like, it's very freaking low octane. Just like the only people who would get excited for this are people who had already been dealing with what FPS looked like in Star Citizen before, because this would just never fly at a normal game convention. But the idea behind it was still interesting because people just didn't have much to play back then.
I think they're controlling it from that radar tower. I need all agents to focus on that.
So as you can see, it's the same outposts with different designs, and then the radar tower, as we know, was placed out here as a new area. So it was very similar to like how in Battlefield when you're playing Rush, you have to unlock different areas as you move forward, and then at the end of the area is the enemy's base. Basically the same thing. That's why I said this is like Battlefield 2142. You unlock several areas, and at the end you have to fly all the way up into space and take a space station, which is a really freaking cool scenario if it works.
All teams, redirecting you to take out that mining laser. Use ships or take it on foot. Whatever it takes, it's gotta go.
Definitely less violent in 4.1. Don't think we can take out the mining laser.
So that gives you a quick preview of what's going on back in the war room here. So Theaters of War, this is a new objective-based game mode, and it's within Star Marine where the key focus is combined arms. We're putting everything together, and this mode really combines all the work we put into Star Marine, Arena Commander, Squadron, PU into one cohesive battle on foot, in vehicles, in the air, all working together to accomplish some common objective or to stop some common objective from being taken. And the idea is that this happens in some sort of historical Star Citizen setting, a story from our lore. So ultimately, Star Citizen hasn't just always been an FPS or just an arena shooter on its own. It's really more accurately described as the ultimate sandbox gameplay. You've got all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of weapons, so let's put them together and let's have some fun. So really, why did we build this, right? Well, at some point in the PU, we are going to get to that level of combat going on. Now, you know, the combat in the PU happens a little more sparsely, and it has to do a little bit with the player counts, but the minute that we put all this stuff together, this better be fun. We can't make it fun after the fact. It's got to be fun before. So it really gives us a really, really solid analytical environment to really hone the gameplay, balance things against each other. So again, how many shots does it take of a railgun to take down an Ursa? How many Ursa shots does it take down to take a Valkyrie? All of these things, they do happen in the PU, but a little more sparsely. And it can take some time. So having said that, when combat occurs, it's really got to be fun. So to reiterate the key points, you know, Theaters of War is another game mode like Elimination or Last Stand in Star Marine. So, and again, combined arms, everything's in play. So what do we want to achieve with this? Well, We want to be able to balance all this. We also want to give you a solid 30-minute experience where you can come in, have some fun, and get out. In the times when we're all so busy, you can't always play for 3 hours. You can't always play for 4 hours. We need actually a real quick, arcadey kind of combat, but not different than Star Citizen. It's got to be the same. And that's a really key point here. We didn't develop really anything drastically new for this. This is using the exact same assets from the PU, same balance, same everything. And if anything, we've taken a lot of the stuff that we've found within Theaters of War, that we found on fun, and we apply it to the PU from there. So it gives us a really good spot to be able to do all that.
Okay, so they did obviously develop the locations for this that wasn't in the PU, but that second part where they do get to kind of benefit from the fact that they made this, they're bringing it in now, and I'm betting that 6 months ago they were just kind of like, hey, do we have any assets we can use to make a good area for a sandbox opportunity that we haven't used yet? And somebody was like, hey, you know what, we still have that stuff from Theaters of War. Clearly they didn't plan on bringing this in for the specific application it got, but doesn't matter. Basically, Star Citizen 4.1 began its journey back here at Citizencon 2024 or 2949 because they eventually did get the chance to reuse this stuff in the game to actually benefit something, which is pretty good. But this is such a long talk about this topic.
It's like the teams have asymmetrical loadouts.
Character presets, okay. Yeah, so this is really just describing this whole thing, and I mean, it's a bit long-winded.
In the history of Star Citizen, the last 100 years, 200 years, 300 years before the present-day PU. And we found this great story. And the story takes place in the Nexus system. So in the Nexus system, there's a notorious outlaw gang, and there's a lot of outlaw gangs within the Nexus system. But this particular one is specifically aggressive. So the Supreme is the name of the outlaw gang in this particular one, and they're facing off against an elite advocacy squad that has come to retake one of the planets. So to give you some backstory on the Nexus system was totally unclaimed. The Hathor group, which was a mining group, came in, but all they really cared about was mining. So as long as profits were being made, they totally looked the other way. And what that sort of evolved into was a really perfect sort of petri dish for a ton of crime. And in the end, Hathor group strip mined the entire area, pulled out, and just left it as it was. And that obviously devolved into something pretty criminal. So with that, pretty much anybody that's doing anything bad in the universe is going to have some time crossing through the Nexus system, and that's where the moniker, the Crossroads of Crime, came from. So over time, the advocacy, or UEE specifically, said, we can't just leave this alone, and the advocacy, being more or less the interstellar police force, went in to retake the system. So rather than give it up, the Supreme would rather see the whole thing destroyed, they're of this nature, before giving it up to the advocacy.
Yeah,
One
Nexus
of the interesting
is kind of
sort
like
of
Pyro.
identifying
They're pretty
things
similar
about the Supreme is that though they're super aggressive, they kind of take all comers, and they're not super well educated. So what you'll notice is that as the Supreme took over the base from the Hathor group, they actually use like pictograms and signs because not all their guys can read. It's kind of an interesting backstory to these guys, but though they can't read, they also use these pictograms to actually throw off the enemy, which is super interesting.
Good lore. We're so dumb
So
we
let's
confuse
give you a bit of
you.
an overview of Theaters of War. So again, we're applying a lot of the player feedback that we've heard from Star Marine, from PU, and from all the different
So
arena
this is it's different from what we have because we have the 3 different places and then the central location, the central. We have the 3 different buildings. All have their own buildings and radar dish, and then you also have a bunker. So there's actually more locations than what they had here. But the basic, the frame, the structure is there. The idea, the radar tower, the mining laser, and the interior locations. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, this was clearly, Theaters of War was like a failure for them. It was just not the right idea. It didn't work out for them, but I'm betting they have gotten some benefits from it here and there. I guess the problem is Like, this is a case of making the best out of a poor situation. And I'm sure a lot of people wish there was never the poor situation. But I do wonder if there are any other pieces of assets and content like this that they've got just kind of sitting around gaining dust that they can eventually put into Star Citizen once they have the devs that are available to work on them. So it's kind of what we see with some features and ships, so maybe that'll continue to be what we see with content. We did see that Tessa Bannister's coming back in soon, so that's kind of another removal of the game that's making a re-emergence. Hopefully we see more. But yeah, that's essentially, that's kind of Theaters of War, where it came from, and a little bit of its background, and then they got to play it a bit at that Citizencon, I think.
To each other, right? They're yelling at the enemy. We've got them on comms so they can talk to each other. And it's actually been
Look at how much
really
fun they're
the energy is
having.
fantastic. You can see that people are really enjoying being able to get that sort of 30-minute adrenaline-packed, high-octane kind of experience right in your face.
Yes!
There was a great moment where somebody was yelling out, 55, you gotta get better. And the guy was like, well, raise your landing gear and learn to lock on. You know, you can really tell the good pilots from the bad pilots, by the way. So if you want to look
by
really
the way,
good,
they crash.
make sure you raise your landing gear.
Yeah, lots of talk. Oh, and then they had a little interview. Him and Rich had an interview at the end of that.
It's got to go, you know, I shoot the gun, it's then got to go up to the server from my client, and then it's go from the server to somebody else's client. So we want to make sure that the networking is absolutely on point, and then, you know, I think that's when we can start talking.
Then we have that
aim
debate
assist
proper.
And, you know, do we need it? How does that impact the rest of it? So I think that's where we're at with it.
Okay, thank you. So will the Theatres of War have a day-night cycle or an environment weather cycle?
I wanted it in.
Yes,
I
we
wanted
really
it
wanted
in.
it,
We have a bug. So and it's a pretty big one, and it's actually already fixed, and it got fixed for the keynote, but I didn't get it fixed for theaters. It's my fault. I was branched off. Whatever. It's okay. But yes, basically that sun was meant to move. So during the phases, and we actually did this back in the, maybe I can't mention, on another game anyways. We would do this, that certain parts in it, because again, it only happens over 30 minutes. Like, how much are you going to see the sun move in 30 minutes? Probably not a lot. But I can actually encourage that a little bit by just animating it. You know, the sun is a real thing in Star Citizen. Like, it still blows my mind that it's actually there in the disc. We can move it around. We can also rotate the planet if we want. So what I wanted was in phase 1, it was actually morning. And in phase 2 was afternoon. And then in phase 3, the planet's looking so incredible at, everybody's seen the screenshots, but it's sunset, right? And then I wanted that sunset during phase 3. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. But it won't be, it's not like a real day-night cycle. It is, as soon as I move the sun, it looks like night.
Well, the one thing to note as well is that we've not faked anything.
Yeah.
You know, even you look at the Good Doctor, there's a whole planet there with, you know, you've got that tiny little map, that arena that's have everything, but it's all real. It's all like the PU. It's all there. So, you know, day and night cycle, everything that's in the PU is totally possible in Theatres of War.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my question.
Cool.
Thank you. Sean, who is the voice of the mission briefer?
I know, it almost, I actually don't know. No, I swear to you, I don't know. Who do you think it is?
Twitch chat was pretty convinced it was you.
I know, it kind of, I was going to say it sounds like me, but it's
Somebody
not,
said
I
it was
promise you.
a cousin from the office.
It's not. I did
Who's
voice
next?
for a game, though. You can look that up. That's fun.
Hey, yeah, just a quick question about like where you've added new smaller zones to fight in. Will we be getting more close combat weapons?
Oh, yeah,
Like
Richard wanted to talk
boarding
about this.
axes, entrenching tools.
Let's talk
even
about some
bats.
damage types and stuff.
Oh yeah, let's
Well,
get
we've
into
got a
that.
lot
Where are
of
we going with?
weapons
Oh
that,
boy,
you know, when you look at the breakdown of FPS.
See, this is before their major Squadron 42 focus restructure thing. Like, they were building Squadron here quite a bit, but this was before Rich took on Squadron and like really tried to get it produced, so they hadn't quite started moving people over. So I bet they had different ideas for how FPS was about to go after all this. Come on, then play.
FPS weapons across, you know, the whole of the PU. You know, we've got that standard foundation in terms of the, you know, the classes, you say SMGs, snipers, the different loadouts. And then we've got the more exotic weaponry. So, you know, we've just released the Salvo last patch. But we've got a long roadmap of weapons that Because we've populated the kind of like base weapons you'd expect from a modern military shooter. Now we're starting to get to the fun stuff. So we've got some really cool stuff. I can't talk about it today, but to answer your question, yes.
Talk about the 3.8
We've
one?
got some really cool stuff.
Talk about the
Well,
3.8
thank you very
Well,
much.
we were in terms of 3.8, we've got the Lightning Bolt company that's already on the roadmap, and that's going to bring some really interesting gameplay that ties into the melee system and stun, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, not to beat too much on it, but you really do need that environment to be able to bring those kind of weapon types online. Again, if you have these really exotic kind of ammo types and you don't rigorously play them, you're going to get some wackiness happening. So now that we've got these environments to be able to do this, I think, you'll see some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Oh God, these talks are definitely a lot more awkward than the newer ones. Up until like 2022, I want to say. Citizencon is just kind of a rough thing to watch. Not every year, but not everything about it, but I think most years of Citizencon up until 2022, or up until basically the pandemic made them stop doing them physically, it was just, oh, guys. Woo! Let's refactor this a little bit. And they did. Thank God. But yeah, that's Theaters of War. That's where it started. And now we're seeing the results of it in 4.1. Yay!